The metal hallway of the TGS Jiangzhou was cold and quiet. The only sounds were the low hum of the ship's systems and the distant, rhythmic beep of a faulty sensor no one had the parts to fix. Captain J. Kim walked slowly, his hand brushing the wall for balance. The gravity was steady, but the ship felt tired. It felt empty. He entered the bridge. It was small, with consoles that flashed with old, green-colored lights. First Officer Min Choi was sitting at the main station, looking at a screen. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, always watching. "Report," Jay said, his voice a low rumble in the quiet room. Min did not turn. "Nothing new, Captain. Patrol zone is clear. Again. The Kaldir fleet is still holding position around Mars. They are not moving. They are just waiting." Jay moved to stand behind her, looking at the main viewer. It showed the blackness of space, dotted with stars. In one corner, a smaller screen showed a tactical display. A large cluster of red dots sat near the red planet. They represented the Kaldir Unity Armada. Hundreds of ships. One single, small blue dot pulsed at the edge of the screen. "The Jiangzhou. Any communications from command?" Jay asked, though he knew the answer. "The last packet was 17 days ago," Min said. "It was the same. Maintain patrol. Observe and report. Conserve resources. They have nothing else to tell us." The door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss. Engineer Hannah Park stepped in. She was young, with grease smudged on her cheek and her dark hair tied back in a messy knot. She held a small data pad. "Captain," she said, her voice tired but firm. "Reactor 3 is failing. Again. I can keep it going for maybe another week by rerouting power from non-essential systems. But non-essential is starting to mean life support on the lower decks." Jay sighed. "Do what you can, Hannah." "I always do," she replied, offering a weak smile. She left the bridge, her boots making soft thumps on the metal floor. Jay sat in the captain's chair. Creaked. He looked at the stars. The Jiangzhou was a frigate, a small ship meant for quick strikes and fast retreats. But there had been no strikes to make, and nowhere to retreat to. After the defeat at the asteroid belt, Earth's fleet was shattered. The big ships, the carriers, and the battleships were gone. The Jiangzhou had survived only because it was in dry dock for repairs. Now it was all that was left on this side of Mars. They were a symbol, Jay knew. A symbol of a fight that was already over. Their patrol was a lie they all agreed to live. They were not protecting anything. They were just a reminder to Earth that the sky was still occupied, and not by friends. A soft chime came from Min's console. "Incoming wideband transmission," she said. "It's a Kaldir broadcast. They are directing it at us." "Put it on speaker," Jay said, his jaw tightening. A voice filled the bridge. It was smooth and deep, speaking perfect English, but with a strange, buzzing quality underneath. It was the voice of Commander Kraz of the Kaldir battleship Voice of Triumph. "Little Earth vessel," the voice said, dripping with amusement. "We see you, drifting on the edge of the dark. Do you enjoy your patrol? Do you feel brave?" Jay said nothing. He saw Min's shoulders stiffen. "We watch your lonely light blink in the void," the voice continued. "It is a sad light, pointless light. Your world is broken. Your people are hiding in their holes. And you are a ghost ship. A joke. Do you really think your presence matters?" The transmission was being sent to the entire Kaldir armada. Jay could imagine them laughing in their sleek, silver ships. "Turn it off," Jay said quietly. Min silenced the speaker. The mockery was replaced by the hum of the ship. The silence felt heavier than before. Crewman Jihan was at the communications post. He was young, barely 20. His hands were clenched into fists on his console. His family had been on the lunar colonies when the Kaldir attacked. There were no survivors. Jay saw the hatred burning in the young man's eyes, a fire that was slowly turning to ash under the weight of helplessness. "They do not understand," Jihan whispered, more to himself than anyone. "Understand what?" Min asked, her voice soft. "That we are still here," Jihan said. Jay looked back at the viewer, at the silent, mocking stars. He was a captain of a dead navy on a dying ship with a crew of ghosts. They had no weapons that could scratch a Kaldir shield. They had no speed to run. They had only their presence. A lonely, blinking light. "Hold our course," Jay ordered, his voice firm in the quiet room. "Maintain patrol pattern. Let them laugh." The Jiangzhou sailed on, a speck of metal and fading hope against an ocean of darkness and scorn. Its job was to be seen, to be mocked, so that Earth might have one more day to breathe. It was the loneliest job in the universe. The quiet on the bridge was broken by a new sound. It was a soft, rhythmic ping from the science station. It was not the steady beep of the faulty sensor. This sound was different. It was a pattern. Science officer Su Yun looked up from his book. He was an older man with thin hair and glasses. His station was usually the quietest. He listened for a moment, his head tilted. He put his book down and his fingers began to move quickly over his console. Captain Jay looked over. "What is it, Su?" "It is a signal, Captain," Su said, his voice full of curiosity. "Very faint. It is coming from the Pluto sector, from the debris field near the old research stations." Min Choi called up the sector on the main screen. The image showed a cloud of icy rocks and dead metal. It was a graveyard for old human projects, abandoned long before the war. "There is nothing out there," Min said. "The Kaldir scanned it months ago. They found no value." "The signal is not standard," Su continued. "It is a data burst on an old frequency, one used for experimental projects. It is repeating a single sequence." Jay felt a small flicker of something in his chest. It was not hope. Hope was too dangerous. It was interest. Puzzle. "Can you identify the source?" he asked. Su worked for a few minutes. The ping continued. A lonely call in the dark. "Yes," he said finally. "The signal's signature matches records for Project Made Up. It was a deep space physics experiment, shut down over a decade ago for lack of results. The station should be dead. Project Made Up." The name rang a faint bell for Jay. It was from the time when humanity looked to the stars with wonder, not fear. It was not a weapons project. He remembered that much. "What is the data?" Min asked. Su decoded the burst. Lines of numbers and complex symbols filled his screen. He studied them, his eyebrows furrowing. "It is not a message. It is not a distress call. It is a set of instructions, mathematical coordinates, and what looks like a stability algorithm. A very complex one." Engineer Hannah Park came back onto the bridge, drawn by the activity. She looked over Su's shoulder at the scrolling data. Her eyes, trained for machines and power flows, saw the beauty in the numbers. "This is a quantum gravity resonance pattern," she said softly. "Look at these values. This is for calibrating a field. A very precise, very delicate field." Jay stood up and walked to the science station. For what purpose? What was Project Made Up trying to do? Su searched the old files in the ship's limited database. He read aloud. Project Made Up. Theoretical application of quantum knots in spacetime. Primary goal: the creation of a temporary, non-destructive stasis field for the permanent preservation of information. A way to save a moment forever. Deemed impractical. A scientific dead end. He looked up. They were not making a weapon. They were trying to make a perfect memory. The crew was silent for a moment, thinking about it. A tool for saving memories, floating in a graveyard while their world was being destroyed. Then the tactical console beeped. Min's face grew tense. "Captain, the Kaldir battleship, the voice of triumph, has altered its course. It is moving to intercept us. They have seen us listening to the signal." On the viewer, the large red dot representing the enemy ship began to move, separating from the armada. It was a predator, and their little ship had just twitched. Jay looked at the data on Su's screen. He looked at the icy debris field on the main viewer. He looked at the approaching red dot. A dead-end project. A mocking enemy. A ship with no future. He made a decision. It was not a grand, heroic decision. It was the only decision left that was not just waiting to die. Change course, Jay said, his voice clear in the quiet bridge. Set a path for the source of that signal. Maximum speed. Min stared at him. Captain, that will take us directly away from our patrol zone. It will take us into the debris. Command's orders were to— Command is not here, Jay interrupted gently. They have given us no new orders for 17 days. That signal is a piece of our past. It is calling. I want to know why. Plot the course. Min hesitated for only a second before her hands flew over her console. Course plotted. Engines responding. The Jiangzhou turned slowly in the dark sea of space. Its nose pointed away from the inner planets, away from Earth and Mars, and out toward the cold and forgotten edge of the system. The hum of the engines grew slightly louder as Hannah routed all the power she could to them. On the Kaldir battleship, they would see this change. To them, it would look like a desperate, pathetic flight. A wounded animal running towards a cave to hide. They would laugh even harder. Jay sat back in his creaking chair. He did not know what he was looking for. He did not believe in miracles. But if they were to be a joke, he wanted to be a joke on his own terms. He wanted to see what the dead end had to say. The Jiangzhou sailed through the silent dark. Behind them, the inner planets were just bright dots. Ahead lay only the cold and the scattered rocks of the outer system. The journey felt longer than it was. Every minute stretched out, filled with the constant low hum of the engines and the faint, persistent ping of the signal from Pluto. The crew moved quietly. Jihan monitored the communications, his eyes glued to the screen, listening for any hint of the Kaldir. Hannah was down in engineering, coaxing every bit of power from the old reactor, her face lit by the soft blue glow of control panels. Suyun studied the strange data from Project Made Up, his lips moving silently as he traced equations. Captain Jay sat on the bridge, watching the main viewer. He saw the large red dot of the Kaldir battleship following them. It was not rushing. It moved with a slow, confident speed. A cat following a mouse that had foolishly left its hole. Min Choi broke the silence. The voice of triumph will be in weapons range in 40 minutes, she said. Her voice was flat, reporting a simple fact. Their speed is superior. We cannot outrun them. Jay nodded. He had known this. Continue on course. Do not alter. A new light flashed on Min's console. They are hailing us. Wideband again. They are broadcasting to their whole fleet. Jay took a deep breath. Let's hear it. The smooth, buzzing voice of Commander Cross filled the bridge once more. This time, the amusement was even clearer. Ah! The little Earth ghost ship has found a new purpose, Cross said. You are running to your scrap heap. Is that your plan? To hide among your own dead machines. On the bridge, Jihan's knuckles were white. He stared straight ahead, not blinking. We are watching your sad, slow flight, Cross continued. The sound of other voices, other Kaldir, could be heard faintly in the background. Laughing. It is the most interesting thing you have done in months. We are bored. You provide a small entertainment. Please, keep running. It makes the final moment more satisfying. The transmission ended, cutting back to the quiet hum of the ship. The silence felt heavy, like a blanket of shame. Min looked at Jay. They are mocking us for their audience. I know, Jay said. Then, a new transmission began. This was not just voice. It was a video feed forced onto their main viewer. The screen changed to show the interior of the Kaldir bridge. It was a wide, clean room with silver walls and soft light. In the center sat Commander Cross. He was tall and slender, with smooth gray skin and large, dark eyes. He looked elegant and powerful. He smiled, showing sharp, white teeth. Around him, other Kaldir officers watched their own screens, which showed the tiny, blurry image of the Jiangzhou. Let us see the brave humans, Cross said, his voice like honey and poison. Open a channel so they can see us. Let them understand what they face. A light on Jay's console indicated the two-way video was active. The Kaldir could now see their bridge. Jay knew he should turn it off, but he did not. He sat up straight in his chair and looked directly at the screen. Kroz's large eyes widened with delight. There you are, the captain of the joke. Tell me, human, what do you hope to find in your garbage pile? A spare part? A forgotten toy? Jay said nothing. He just stared. No words. Kraz laughed. Good. Your language is primitive. Your actions are even more so. We will let you reach your graveyard. We will let you touch it. And then we will turn your ship into a new piece of debris for our collection. A lesson for any of your kind who still dream. The video feed showed a close-up of the Kaldiir's weapons console. A clawed finger hovered over a bright button. This is a single plasma lance. It is what we use to clean small asteroids from our path. It is more than enough for you. We will not waste a missile on a ghost. The transmission cut off. The main viewer returned to the starfield and the tactical map. The red dot was closer now. The bridge was utterly silent. The air felt cold. Jihan was breathing hard, his chest rising and falling fast. The young man's face was pale. Min spoke, her voice barely a whisper. They are not just going to destroy us. They are making a show of it. Jay finally looked away from the screen. He looked at his crew. At Min, steady and strong. Isu lost in his numbers. At Jihan, trembling with a rage that had no outlet. They understand power, Jay said, his voice low and calm. They understand fear. They understand big guns and big explosions. He paused, looking toward the front viewer, where the distant speck of Pluto was now visible. They do not understand why we are going out here. They think it is desperation. They do not understand curiosity. He turned to Su. Science Officer Yoon, you have 35 minutes. Tell me everything the made-up data can do. Not what it was supposed to do. What it can do. Su nodded, a new focus in his eyes. He turned back to his screen, his fingers flying. The Jiangzhou flew on, a small, brave, and foolish dot of light, sailing into the jaws of a predator for a reason no one else could see. The laughter of the Kaldiir was a silent pressure in the air, pushing them forward. The Jiangzhou shuddered as it entered the debris field. Small bits of ice and metal tapped against the hull like gentle, cold rain. The old station appeared on the main viewer. It was a broken claw of dark metal, spinning slowly against the stars. One side was torn open, a wound from an ancient accident. It looked dead. We are here, Min said, her eyes on the scanners. The Kaldiir ship will be in optimal firing range in 15 minutes. They have slowed. They are watching. Captain Jay stood up. Su, Hannah, what do we have? Suyun turned from his station. He looked tired, but his eyes were bright. The data is a key, Captain. It is not a weapon. The project made-up device was built to create a temporary, stable knot in the fabric of spacetime. A bubble where time and energy stop. The algorithm tells us how to tie that knot at a specific set of quantum coordinates. And these coordinates, he pointed to a string of numbers on his screen. They are not for a point in empty space. They are for a focal point within a large area of moving energy signatures. Min understood first. Her breath caught. Like the center of an armada. Like the middle of many ships with their engines and reactors running. Yes, Su whispered. The device does not destroy, freezes, preserves a perfect moment. It was meant for keeping information safe from the end of the universe. Hannah Park spoke next. She had been studying the engineering schematics pulled from the data. The device is a resonator. It is on that station. We need to get it and attach it to our main power grid. The Jiangzhou will become the battery and the trigger. But Captain, it will take all our power. Everything. Life support, engines, shields. All of it in one burst. What happens to us? Jihan asked from his station, his voice thin. Hannah met his gaze. If we do it while the Kaldiir are shooting at us, we will be a drifting, dead can. No power. No heat. Maybe no air. Jay looked at the broken station outside. He looked at the tactical screen with the approaching red dot. He had a choice between two deaths. A quick death by enemy fire, turned into a joke for their amusement. Or a slow, cold death in the dark, after doing something the enemy could not understand. They think we are hiding, Jay said. They think we are desperate. They are right about the second part. But we are not hiding. He looked at Hannah and Sue. Can you get the device? Hannah nodded. It's in a secured lab module. Probably intact. We can spacewalk. Do it, Jay said. You have 10 minutes. Min, plot the fastest route back toward the Armada. We are not running away from them. We are going to get as close as we can. Min's eyes widened, but she began working. Aye, Captain. Hannah and Sue moved quickly. They pulled on their bulky white spacesuits in the equipment bay. No one spoke. The only sounds were the clicks of locks and the hiss of oxygen. Jay helped Hannah seal her helmet. Good luck, he said, his voice muffled through the glass. Hannah gave a sharp nod. Just keep them busy. The airlock door opened, and the two figures drifted out into the silent, airless dark. Their suit lights cut through the black, illuminating the torn metal of the old station. They moved toward the gash in the side. On the bridge, Jay watched them on a small monitor. Every second felt like an hour. The red dot on the tactical screen grew closer. The voice of triumph is hailing us again, Min said. Ignore it. A moment later, Min's voice tightened. They have a weapons lock. They are charging the plasma lance. Jay looked at the monitor. He saw Hannah and Sue pulling a large, crystalline object from a broken console. It was the resonator. It looked like a complex knot made of glass and silver wire. Come on, he whispered to the empty air. The two figures began moving back, towing the device behind them. It was slow, too slow. Captain, Min said, her voice urgent. The Kaldiar are firing. On the main viewer, a bright line of blue light cut through the dark. It was not aimed at the Jiangzhou. It lanced past their bow, missing them by a few hundred meters. A warning shot, a final piece of mockery. The video channel forced itself open again. Commander Kraw's face filled the screen. He was smiling. Did you see that? We missed. On purpose. The next one will not miss. Your time is up, little ghost. Say goodbye to your scrap heap. Jay stared at the screen. He saw the airlock door finally open on the monitor. Hannah and Sue tumbled back inside, pulling the resonator in with them. We have it, Captain. Hannah's voice, panting and strained, came over the comms. Jay looked back at Kraw's smiling face on his screen. He leaned forward slightly. We are not saying goodbye, he said, his voice clear and calm. We are saying watch this. He cut the transmission. Hannah, hook it up. Now. Min, give me full power to the engines. Take us right at them. The Jiangzhou groaned as its engines flared. The old ship turned, pointing its nose away from the debris and back toward the distant Kaldiar Armada. It was a tiny ship, charging toward a giant. On the bridge of the Voice of Triumph, Commander Kraus laughed. He pointed at the screen. Look, the ghost has spirit. It chooses to die flying. How amusing. Fire the lance. Let us end this show. The Kaldiar officer pressed the button. A second, brighter line of blue fire erupted from the battleship. This one was aimed true. It shot across the void, straight for the heart of the Jiangzhou. The blue line of fire filled the main viewer. It was silent in the vacuum of space, but on the Jiangzhou's bridge, the moment roared with a terrible quiet. Captain Jay saw it coming. There was no time to speak, no time for a final order. He could only watch. Then the ship shuddered. It was a deep, groaning shudder that went through the floor and into their bones. Red lights exploded across every console. A shower of sparks burst from the ceiling above Min's station. The main viewer flickered and died, plunging them into emergency lighting, a dim, bloody red. The sound of tearing metal screamed from the rear of the ship. It was the sound of the Jiangzhou being wounded. Direct hit to engineering secondary bay. Hannah's voice screamed over the comms, filled with static and pain. We have a hull breach. I'm sealing it. Primary power is failing. The ship groaned again, leaning to one side like a hurt animal. The constant hum of the engines dropped to a sickening whine, then to nothing. The quiet that followed was worse than any noise. It was the sound of a heart stopping. Only the emergency battery lights remained. The bridge was a cave of red shadows and flashing warnings. "Report!" Jay yelled, pulling himself up in his chair. His arm hurt where he had hit the console. Min's hands flew over her dead panels. She switched to a backup system. A small, grainy screen flickered to life. "Main reactor is offline. Engines are dead. Life support is on batteries. We have maybe an hour of air. Hull integrity is holding. But we are bleeding heat and oxygen from 3 decks." Her voice was tight but controlled. She was doing her job. "Hannah! Sue! Status on the device!" Jay called. There was a long, static-filled pause. Then Sue's voice, thin and shaky, came through. "The resonator is intact. It was not hit. We have it connected to the main power feed. But Captain, there is no main power." Jay felt the cold of space seeping into the bridge. It was not just the temperature. It was the feeling of an end. They had taken the hit. They were dead in the water, just as Hannah had said they would be. The Kaldir would finish them now. They had lost. On the small tactical screen, the red dot of the voice of triumph was closing in slowly, confidently. They would be in point-blank range soon. The killing shot. Then Ji-hun spoke. He was staring at his own dead console. "They are not firing again." Min checked the scanner data from the backup. "He is right. They are holding position. They are scanning us." Jay understood. Commander Kraz wanted to savor this. He wanted to watch them freeze and suffocate. He wanted to listen to their final, desperate communications. The mockery was not over. Their slow death was the final act of the show. A new fury, cold and sharp, cut through Jay's despair. They would not give him that satisfaction. They would not die begging on an open channel. "Hannah," Jay said, his voice hard as stone. "We have battery power for the bridge systems. Can you route all of it? Every last bit of energy in the ship's batteries. Can you funnel it into the resonator?" 1 pulse. Over the comms, he could hear Hannah breathing hard. "The batteries are for life support, Captain. For the air. We will be out of air in an hour anyway," Jay said. "Can you do it?" A pause. Then Hannah's voice, clear and decisive. "Yes, I can bypass the safeties. Sue has the coordinates loaded. We can do it. But it will be 1 pulse. And then we will be completely dark. No heat. No lights. Nothing." Jay looked around the red-lit bridge. At Min, waiting for the order. At Ji-hun, who had stopped trembling. His face now set in a hard line. He thought of Hannah and Sue down in the dark, cold engineering bay. "We came here to do something they cannot understand," Jay said. "Let's do it. Target the focal point at the center of the Kaldir armada." The one Sue calculated. "Aye, Captain," Hannah said. Jay looked at Min, open a channel to the voice of triumph. Audio only. Min worked the damaged console. A light flickered. "Open." Jay leaned toward the comm panel. His voice was calm, flat, and final. "Commander Kraz, you asked what we hoped to find in our garbage pile. We found an answer to a question you never thought to ask." He nodded to Min. She cut the channel. "Do it, Hannah," Jay said. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a new sound started. It was a low, vibrating hum that came up through the deck. It was not the sound of engines. It was a stranger sound, a deeper sound. It was the sound of the ship's last energy being pulled, like blood from a heart, into the strange crystalline device bolted to its broken spine. The red emergency lights flickered, dimmed, and went out. The bridge was plunged into absolute blackness. The hum reached a peak, a high, singing note that seemed to vibrate in their teeth. And then it was gone. Everything was gone. The sound, the last of the power, the faint heat from the vents. It all stopped. They were floating in a silent, motionless, cold metal coffin in the dark. Captain Jay could not see his own hand in front of his face. He could only hear the ragged sound of his own breath in the sudden, terrible silence. They had fired their shot, but there had been no flash of light, no roar of sound, nothing to see. They had tied the knot, and now they waited in the dark to see if it would hold. The darkness was total. It was a physical thing, heavy and cold. Captain J could feel it pressing against his eyes. He heard only the sounds of his crew breathing nearby, short, sharp puffs of air in the freezing black. "Is anyone hurt?" Jay's voice sounded too loud in the perfect quiet. "I am here," Min said from his right. Her voice was steady. "I am okay," Ji-hun whispered from the comm station. From the engineering bay, Hannah's voice came over the dead comms, weak but clear. "Sue is with me. We are unhurt." The resonator discharged. "It is quiet now." "What happened?" Ji-hun asked, the fear creeping back into his voice. "Did it work? Or did we just turn off the lights for them?" Min answered. Her eyes were better adjusted, or she was just closer to the one place where light still existed. The backup tactical screen, it has a passive scanner. It runs on a tiny capacitor. It is still alive. Her fingers brushed against the console, feeling for the controls in the dark. Bringing it up now. A faint, green glow appeared in the blackness. It was no bigger than a hand, but on the bridge it seemed as bright as a star. Everyone turned toward it. The screen showed a simple radar image of the space around them. Jay leaned forward, the cold from the console seeping into his arms. On the screen, the Jiangzhou was a tiny dot in the center. The large red dot of the voice of triumph was there, too. It was very close, but it was not moving. A small code next to it flashed. NR for no reading. "It is just there," Min said, her confusion clear. "No engine heat. No power signature. No weapon charge. It is reading like a cold rock." "Maybe they shut down their systems," Ji-hun suggested, hope trembling in his words. "To mock us? To pretend to be dead?" "Zoom out," Jay ordered, a strange feeling growing in his chest. "Show me Mars. Show me the Armada." Min's fingers worked. The view on the little screen pulled back and back again. More dots appeared. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The entire Kaldir fleet around Mars was represented. Every single one was marked with the same flashing code. NR. No reading. "It is not just one ship." Sue's voice came through, full of awe. He must have been seeing the same data in engineering. The pulse. It was not an explosion. It was a field. It expanded at light speed. The coordinates. They were a focal point, but the effect was an area. A bubble. "What is in the bubble?" Jay asked, staring at the field of motionless red dots. "Everything," Sue whispered. "And nothing. Time and energy are linked, Captain. If you stop one, you stop the other. The knot ties them both. Within that field, at the quantum level, all motion has ceased. All energy exchange is frozen. Entropy is paused." Jay tried to understand. He thought of a stream in winter, frozen solid in an instant. The water was still there, but it could not flow. The fish inside would not die. They would just stop. "Are they alive?" Min asked, voicing the terrible thought. "In a way," Sue replied, his voice distant, like a professor giving a lecture. "Their thoughts, if they are made of electrical signals, are frozen. Their consciousness is a single, stretched moment. They are not dead. They are preserved. Perfectly. They are inside the knot." The crew sat in the dark, wrapped in the cold, grasping the idea. They had not fired a missile. They had not used a laser. They had not even scratched the paint on the enemy ships. They had filed them away. Ji-hun let out a sound that was half a laugh, half a sob. "They are stuck." "Yes," Sue said. On the little green screen, the mighty Kaldir Armada, the fleet that had broken Earth's defenses and laughed at their last ship, sat motionless. They were not destroyed. They were just paused. A museum display of ultimate power, frozen forever in the act of victory. The voice of triumph, which had been about to fire the killing shot, was now a silent statue a few kilometers away. Its plasma lance was still charged, its weapons officer's finger still on the button, Commander Kraw's smile still on his face. But the energy of the lance could not release. The signal from the finger could not travel. The smile could not fade. Everything was over. "The field is stable?" Jay asked, the practical need returning. According to the made-up data, the knot will hold for a theoretical 1,000,000 years, Sue said, or until someone from the outside applies the exact counter-resonance to untie it. 1,000,000 years. They had not won a war. They had created a monument. The reality of their own situation settled back into the freezing bridge. The air was getting thin. Jay could feel the cold reaching deeper into his body. They had saved Earth from the immediate threat, but they had done it from the edge of the solar system, in the dark with a dying whisper. No one knew. No one had seen. They were alone in the silence they had made, floating at the edge of a frozen sea. The cold was no longer just outside. It was inside them now. Captain Jay could see his breath in the faint green light of the tactical screen. Each puff a small cloud that hung in the still air. The air was turning stale. It had a flat, metallic taste. They had done it. The proof was on the screen, a field of silent red dots. But the knowledge was a cold stone in Jay's stomach. It did not warm him. Min spoke, her words slow in the thickening air. Life support batteries are depleted. Carbon dioxide scrubbers are offline. We have maybe 30 minutes of breathable air left. Less if we talk. Jay nodded in the dark. He understood. They had traded a quick death for a slow one. But they had traded it for something else, too. Hannah, Sue, he said, his voice raspy. Can you get to the bridge? It will be colder, but we should be together. There was a long silence from the comms. Then, the sound of scraping and a heavy breath. We are coming, Hannah said. Jay, Min, and Jihan waited. They listened to the sounds of the two others moving through the pitch-black ship, bumping into walls in the utter darkness. Took a long time. Finally, the bridge door, which was manual now with no power, slid open a few inches with a grunt of effort. Two shapes shuffled in. 5 people now sat on the cold floor of the bridge, gathered around the tiny, glowing screen. Their faces were pale in the green light. They huddled close, sharing what little warmth their bodies had left. Jihan was looking at the screen, at the frozen dot of the voice of triumph. He is still smiling, the young man said quietly. He will always be smiling, Sue replied, his arms wrapped around himself. For a long, long time, Jay looked at his crew. Min, the steadfast first officer. Hannah, the brilliant engineer. Sue, the quiet scientist. Jihan, the boy who had lost everything. They had followed him to the edge of nothing. I am sorry, Jay said. The words felt too small for the dark. I led us here. Hannah shook her head, a movement barely seen. You led us through here. No one else was coming. No one else was even looking. What do we do now? Jihan asked, his voice thin. It was Min who had the answer. She was at her station even now. Her fingers felt for a specific panel. The emergency distress beacon, she said. It has its own tiny solar battery. It is passive. It was not connected to the main grid, so it was not drained. She flipped a physical switch. A single, small yellow light began to pulse on her console. It is sending our location. And a simple code. Ship disabled. Survivors. That is all. It was a meaningless gesture. It would take days for that weak signal to reach the inner system. They had minutes of air. But it was the last duty. It was the final report. Sue leaned his head back against a console. It is funny. They wanted to make a show of our end. Now, their whole fleet is part of the show. But there is no one to watch. Jay closed his eyes. The air was becoming hard to pull into his lungs. Felt heavy. He thought of Earth, unseen beyond the millions of miles of dark. Were they looking at their scanners now? Would they see the mighty Kaldiar armada suddenly go silent? Would they think it was a trick? He had to tell them. They had to know the threat was paused. With a great effort, he reached for the comms panel near his chair. He found the manual override for the emergency channel. It was a direct line, meant for a captain's final words. It ran on the same tiny battery as the beacon. He pressed the button. A small red light glowed. This is Captain J. Kim of the Terran gravity ship Jiangzhou, he said. Each word an effort. To any Earth station listening, the Kaldiar armada is neutralized. Not destroyed, preserved, using Project Made Up. The threat is paused. He coughed, the air scraping his throat. The price was our ship. We are out of time. Send help for my crew. Humanity's fight is not with bigger guns, but with smarter knots. He released the button. The red light went out. The message would repeat, riding the same weak signal as the beacon out into the void. There was nothing left to do. They sat together in the quiet and the cold. The green screen was the only light in all creation. On it, the enemy was frozen forever. Outside the window, the stars were sharp and uncaring. Jihan's breathing became slow and shallow. Min laid her head on Jay's shoulder. Hannah and Sue held hands, their heads bowed. Jay kept his eyes open, looking at the stars. He felt no great peace. He felt no victory, but he felt a small, hard pride, like a smooth stone. They had been a joke, a lone, silly Earth vessel, and they had changed everything with an idea their enemy was too arrogant to see. The last of the air grew thick. The dark at the edges of his vision crept inward. The cold was not so cold anymore. Everything was over.